to try this again, otra vez, because I had my camera froze. It's such a bizarre, the technical stuff that happens when you are doing these broadcasts. They really, all kinds of craziness can happen, and all kinds of craziness did happen. So I am back on live now. So holla at me, people. Let me know you're out there checking out the broadcast. Say hello. We have a lot of things to talk about tonight because it's been a crazy news week and lots of craziness going on, of course. So I'm here to work it all out, sort it all out, and maybe have a little fun along the way, right? So going to give some people some time to get up in here and let me know where they are watching from. Bizarre little, my camera froze before, so I was like, where are these? I was like, nah, and it just like kind of stuck there, so I couldn't really move or see anyone on the screen on camera. And that is my phone ringing live as well. Holla. Hey, Barry. What's up, my friend? Barry is checking in, saying howdy do. Good to see you, man. Where are you actually located, Barry? I know that what I love about this is that people have been checking out my core issues from all around the globe, which is really, really cool. I really dig that. And it's an international thing now. So I have some friends out in, as far away as Australia, all around the world, checking me out. And I'm really excited because people are now starting to really actually send me some ideas for shows, sending me some content. There's some suggestions on what I should say and talk about. And it's really great because that lets me know that people are watching and we're all participating in a conversation together. So I really, really enjoy having that time with you guys. And I miss you when I'm gone, actually. I miss you when I'm gone. I do it once a week. And every Wednesdays, I try and do it at 8:30, as you know. And that's pretty much a consistent thing. But during the week, so much happens that I miss you guys. And I kind of want to jump in and sometimes, during the week and say, hey, but, I want to wait till we get enough good stuff to talk about. So I'm going to say hello to Tamiria Tate, Jersey City, checking in. Hey, darling, thanks for checking in. I appreciate that so much. And Barry, you are in Seattle. That's so awesome. Seattle, Washington, rock and roll. William, that's my southern boy. William, that's like North Carolina, was it, my friend? Oh, yes, Fayetteville, North Carolina. And so that's great. I mean, people are watching from all around the U.S., so I'm excited. So a couple of things that before we get on to our main topics tonight, I was just going through some crazy headlines today. And, another guy, this is funny how racists are just kind of like putting themselves out of work, right? So there was a police officer in Detroit recently. And he did a Snapchat, which is so bizarre, right? A cop in uniform. He has time to Snapchat. But he did. He Snapchat a photo of himself. And he literally, he's in a Detroit, all black neighborhood. And he literally sent out a Snapchat that said, another night to wrangle up these zoo animals. So that was kind of bizarre because he's a policeman in an all black neighborhood. He's white, blonde hair, blue eyes, and he is a policeman in this district of all black people. And, he is supposed to be the one that they trust, right? To protect and serve the community. And instead he regards them as animals, which is really funny because what happened was when he sent the Snapchat out into the universe, he got fired. So how about that? So, it's like racists are just, apparently they don't like a paycheck because they're waking up, like Barbecue Becky and all these other, all these other racists who are just wilding out now. They completely are doing this crazy stuff, and they're waking up unemployed. So if that's what they want to do, they want to wake up with a pink slip, unemployment line, whatever, then so be it. But the best thing about this Snapchat was, in his omnipotence of supremacy, as he's calling these people animals, this officer, his last name is Bostwick, he actually misspelled the word wrangle. So he wrote another night to Rangel, which I believe spells Rangel. Another night to Rangel these zoo animals. You're going to Rangel, Rangel is how he spelled wrangle. I'm going to argue that I bet you 9 out of 10 of those zoo animals that he was wrangling up could actually spell the word wrangle. I'm going to argue that I'm certain that most people in that black neighborhood, I would say, can spell wrangle, and it's not Rangel. Anyway, he woke up unemployed, and good for his ass. That's what he gets. Moving right along, Nikki Haley. What was that all about today? Nikki Haley says that, hey, people really weren't laughing at Donald Trump. They were laughing with him. She says, I mean, we all saw the UN performance of Donald Trump when he gets in front of the actual, 200 world leaders, and he says, I think we all know that I have the most successful presidency in the history of the world. And they all laughed like it was a scene from Carrie, like straight up, they're all going to laugh at you. They're all going to laugh at you. Like at one point, I thought like blood was going to just like drop down on him. And he was going to kill everybody at the prom. Because literally they were like, we're all going to laugh at you. They laughed at him like straight up like Carrie. And even he was taken aback by it. He was like, okay, that wasn't the response I was hoping for. That's because everyone knows you're full of crap, dude, and you're not the best president in history. So they knew it. It was funny. They laughed at you. They laughed at you, Donald Trump. They didn't laugh with you. But Nikki Haley put a whole other spin on it. Nikki Haley says, yes, Nikki Haley, U.S. ambassador to the United Nations. She says that foreign leaders love to be with Trump, and they laughed because of a jovial tone in admiration of his honesty. Now, girl, look, I don't know if they're passing a bong around at the ambassador office, if Nikki Haley is smoking that good stuff. Like, I don't know exactly like what's going on with that, but apparently it's not just an alternative fact that we're living with these people, not alternative facts. We are dealing with alternative universe at this point with these people. It is really like a whole other ball game. I mean, foreign leaders do not love Donald Trump because of his honesty. Americans don't even love Donald Trump because he's not honest. So I'm pretty certain that foreign leaders think he's a joke. And it was really like bizarre to watch that, So that was cray cray with that. Straight up alternative facts. And that's like pretty much what we're living in right now. Alternative facts with the Republicans. But moving right along, I want to also just give a shout out, not a shout out, but an honorable mention to Arthur Mitchell, who was the founder of the National Dance, the Dance Theater of Harlem, he's a very monumental force. He was a monumental force. He died at 84 years old about 6 days ago. And he started that school in his like basement or his garage or something. And he would charge kids 50 cents a class. And ultimately it ended up with like 800 students, and he had to get a bigger building, and he became one of the most prolific figures in the arts. And even like Misty Copeland, just, she sent out a really amazing message on Twitter and Instagram and about what he meant to her and how many young Black dancers he inspired because of the groundbreaking legacy he left behind as a dancer. And he opened up so many doors for other young artists, not just African-American, but just people in marginalized groups who had an opportunity to dance in the Dance Theater of Harlem. And He died of, I think, complications of heart condition, but 84, lived a great life, lived a rich life. Rest in peace, Arthur Mitchell. So moving right along to tonight's topics. Now, Bill Cosby. Let's get into it. Bill Cosby. I'm going to have to just Bill Cosby. Oh, excuse me. Just got a little note from my assistant. Yeah, sorry about that. Just a little note, because I have to sometimes like really get into like, make sure that everything that I am saying is accurate, But anyway, so Bill Cosby. So we all saw America's Favorite Dad like completely like hauled off in chains, and would you excuse me, I'm getting some feedback. I'm going to need a volume down back on whatever volume you have up back there, Joseph. When you're broadcasting from home, people don't realize that their volume has to be down because then I'm echoing with myself. But it is kind of cool that someone's like watching me in the apartment, right? So cool. But I do need that volume down. So Bill Cosby got hauled off to jail, prison for 3 to 10 years. 3 years is the minimum that he will have to do at least before he's even considered, right, to be released. It was hard to watch him kind of shuffling along, right? It was very like watching, like, I don't know. It was very surreal. He's America's dad. And then all the conversations that happened on Facebook were like, people were really feeling some kind of way, like, there's a racial overtone to it where some people were arguing, well, how is Harvey Weinstein still around, right? How is even Woody Allen, for that matter? How is Woody Allen still around? Bill O'Reilly, there's no jail time with Bill O'Reilly. The president himself, 17 allegations of sexual assault. He's not in prison. You have all these examples of white men who have been really doing some crazy stuff as well when it comes to sexual improprieties, and they're not in prison. Now, their careers may have been annihilated, but they're not in prison. And the difference, though, as I really thought about it, because I was taking that road, and someone on Facebook checked me. They're like, yo, that's not how this is. This is not a racial thing. There is something very specifically different about Bill Cosby's situation. Bill Cosby, in a 2005 deposition, admitted to giving quaaludes to women in order to have sex with them. He literally is on record in full disclosure saying that, he had done that to get women in the mood so that they could have sex. And sometimes maybe the women didn't even know. The women didn't know that he had put the quaaludes in there. So that is a very specific situation where he was literally drugging women, and he admitted it in 2005. So the difference with that is you have allegations on all these other people with like Harvey Weinstein and Bill O'Reilly, et cetera, but they have adamantly like rejected and said, no, it never happened. When it comes to Bill Cosby, America's Favorite Dad was crushing up rape drugs by his own admission and literally having sex with unconscious women. So some people are arguing that 3 years is not even enough. 3 to 10 years is not enough. Should have been longer, right? I don't have any real assessment of how do you assess that? But if you are crushing up pills to get women to have sex with you, not only are you pathetic, first of all, let me just tell you about me. I don't want a lifeless, dead body under me while I'm, and it's just, What is that? What's your next step after that? Like necrophilia? Like, who wants an unconscious person under them not even responding? Like, what is that? You might as well just go stick it in a cantaloupe or something, or some other inanimate object, and spare yourself like the rape and drug charges. Like, who does that and why? Like, my ego is too fragile, first of all, for me to have a my ego is far too fragile to have a person under me not responding during sex. That's just me. I'd like, baby, you okay? Are you there? Wake your ass up. I would be upset. But these people, like, the purpose of that is to try to get them unconscious. Sex is a little collaborative, in my opinion. So I'm going to need some response. So the drugging of people is a bizarre phenomenon. I don't know what that's about. And especially when it comes to someone as famous as Bill Cosby, who, for all intents and purposes, he was able to charm these women into his life. And chances are he could have actually pursued healthy sexual relationships with willing participants because of who he was. I mean, celebrities draw that kind of thing. So instead of doing that, he slipped them some drugs and made them go unconscious. Not my thing. I need a response. So y'all can have that roofie stuff. But for me, that's a no ma'am for me. So he's where he needs to be. And I feel bad. I love the Cosby Show. Many people don't even know. When I was 12 years old, I auditioned for Theo Huxtable. Didn't get it, clearly. So, it's one of those things where I grew up, like, in my mind, Bill Cosby was like my dad, just like you all thought that. And just so we're clear, Dad is in prison for drugging women and having sex with them tonight. Dad's in prison. Which is, it's awful. But there's always been talk about things like this, and now it's come to fruition. And as a person who's experienced sexual impropriety myself as a kid, I have no sympathy for, granted, this is like different. This is not pedophilia. This is an adult, but still it's the sexual predatory behavior that is so deeply and profoundly disturbing to me, that is pervasive in our society. And it's like something that will not go away, which brings me to Kavanaugh. Got that from Randy Rainbow. I'm not sure if you guys saw the new Randy Rainbow. He literally did a Camelot, a Camelot parody. But before I move on to Kavanaugh, let me just check out some of the comments you guys have been giving, because I have been running my mouth and haven't had a chance to really check you guys out. So let's see. Yeah, John. Yeah, man, my ego is too fragile for that, bro. Like, I need response. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't be, And yes, Charlie Sheen. Charlie Sheen, I'm not even sure how they didn't put him under the jail. I mean, from drugs to apparently rape charge. But again, Charlie Sheen is not someone who has been, he's not been accused of, I don't think, doing it to someone, maliciously. He dealt with like porn stars and hookers, right? They were like, yeah, Charlie Sheen wasn't really drugging women. He just had many women, which is different. But he wasn't like drugging them, right, to have sex, as far as I know. Like, if I'm wrong, please someone, share with me if I'm wrong. But I find it to be very different. John, Charlie Sheen is having an evening with here. And oh, really? So so tell me, what's that like? What, he's gonna like sit down and Oz, and of course John Hill is referring to Australia, not the prison Oz from HBO. That's a fictitious prison. John, tell me about that though. So what, he's going to be have like a sit down, like, hey, I had sex with 1,000 women, and here's how, like, what? Oh gosh. I mean, I could just Google it, and you got to pay for that? Is it free? Like, you got to go pay to see Charlie Sheen, like, to talk about how many women he banged? Shit, I need to get that gig. I'm just saying. I mean, I don't know if I'll make as much money as Charlie Sheen. The show might be over kind of fast for me if I have to tell how many people I had sex with. But I mean, not that I'm innocent, but I'm not a hoe. Not like Charlie Sheen. But that's wild. Yeah, like a sit down tell all. Oh, John's. Oh my god. Oh gosh, Joseph Bennett. Have any Quaaludes? No, I don't have any. But wait a minute. So John Hill, are you going to see Charlie Sheen? Are you going to go check out this whole Charlie Sheen talks about his banging life and how much? Like you just actually posted. John just posted. If anyone's going to be in Australia, John just posted tickets, and this is funny because it's a comedy. It's like I guess it's being built like a comedy thing. It's a comedy show of Charlie Sheen talking about all the women. Well, look, I love Charlie Sheen. Great actor, man. If you look at Platoon and did great stuff, but drugs, like many times with people, it can distract from your real path and focus. So that happened to him. But in any event, the point is, the Bill Cosby story brought me to Kavanaugh because we were talking about drugs. Now, I'm sure you guys have been following this story too. So Kavanaugh has been on TV. John said he's not interested in drugs. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. Well, American Horror Story comes on like very soon, so I gotta keep it moving really quickly. So basically, with Kavanaugh, he has been painting a story about himself in the media for the past, I guess, a week or so. Like he's an altar boy, he's a choir boy, like he's Boy Scout, like he's doing nothing wrong. He's like, oh my gosh, all I did was I went to school and church. That's pretty much, according to Kavanaugh, he went from communion to class. That was his life. Meanwhile, all this stuff is there's the most raunchiest stuff popping up from his yearbook. Apparently in this small town, and I hate to swear in my show because I'm trying to be, family show here. But literally, if you read his yearbook and his posts and all the stuff that his friends are saying, all they did in this town was fuck at 17 years old. Literally. But according to him, he's like, well, no, I didn't do anything. I love women, respect them. Well, according to your yearbook, the last thing you did was respect them. And so now we have 3 women who have come forward. And the biggest revelation to come forward was this 3rd woman that Michael Avenatti, Gangsta Avenatti, threw out there today. The woman who really has a full story of how she literally was drugged and raped by Kavanaugh, Mark Judge, and his friends. And apparently there was a whole complete system in place in which this particular circle of friends, they'd go to parties, Kavanaugh among them, Mark Judge, and they would spike the punch at these parties so that the girls would become completely inebriated and again unconscious so they could have sex with them. This the Bill Cosby thing with the pills again. And now, I mean, in an attempt to try to understand it, at least the difference with them is that they were young and you do really dumb stuff, even maybe criminal stuff, without realizing when you're young. This is definitely one of those situations where it's a criminal act, whether they were young or not. But my point is that Bill Cosby was an adult, so he definitely knew right from wrong. But you're 17, you do dumb shit that will follow you for the rest of your life. And this is clearly one of those things that's a criminal act. If they did it, that will follow them. It's following Brett Kavanaugh now, clearly, as he's trying to become a Supreme Court justice. But the point is, again, with the unconscious person under you, I'm not sure if that's something that is feeding someone's ego, that they feel like they've empowered someone or they've taken advantage of someone, if that's the thrill, or if it literally is the thrill of the person being unconscious, so you can just kind of you can violate them in all kinds of ways that is actually a sexual gratification. I have no idea, but it was the same thing again, like the rape date, the date rape drug, like the Rohypnol, and all. I just don't get it. But that's what this woman is claiming, that she would literally be at parties where Brett Kavanaugh and his friends would be spiking the punch. And literally, they'd have an unconscious girl in a room, and there'd be a line outside the door to pull her words, to pull a train on her, one guy at a time, with an unconscious woman. So William asks, so is he going to jail? Well, it's very funny about that, because from what I understand, this is now not just about him being someone who may lose his nomination for the Supreme Court. It is possible now, because the state of Maryland is one of the states that has laws that do not protect from the statute of limitations in some cases. So if there is an investigation and these acts can be proven to be felonious acts, like drugging someone and having sex, and there's enough corroboration of this behavior, even though it was 35 years ago, these particular situations that this woman describes happened in Maryland. And Maryland is one of those states that has no statute of limitations. So not only does Kavanaugh now face, which I think is inevitable, not being a Supreme Court justice, he faces potential criminal charges for, attempted rape, sexual misconduct, drugging someone. I mean, there's a few charges there. And tomorrow, as we know, Dr. Ford, Christine Blasey Ford, will be her testimony will be tomorrow against Kavanaugh. That will be something I'm going to follow that, like, as soon as I wake up, and just kind of follow that story throughout the day and see what's going on. And I'll probably be on Facebook with you guys talking about it all day. But I just don't think that he's going to be put forth as a Supreme Court nominee at this point, as a justice. What do you guys think? I just don't think it's possible. I mean, he's a liability in any way, shape, or form. He is a liability for the Republicans at this point. He's a liability in the fact that right now, the best point that I heard made today, right now, it is the Senate. You know, it is a Republican-led Congress right now who is just as much on trial, if you will, as Kavanaugh, to defend what is right and to make the right decisions. Right now, it looks like a bunch of old white men, the same old white men who, you know, threw Anita Hill under the bus years ago, the same ones who tried to disparage Stormy Daniels, the same one who just continually try to victimize themselves when they are the aggressors of sexual impropriety. It seems like they completely are going to have to wear this around their neck, like an albatross, right? No matter what. So if you believe for tomorrow, that's bad for them for obvious reasons. But if tomorrow you still don't really think that, you don't know what to think, but you see that these men are so willing to just throw Kavanaugh through in the midst of all of these accusations that are now being corroborated with, like, there's 4 affidavits from Ford's attorney, this new testimony declaration under penalty of law from Julie Swetnick now, who literally recounts stories when she, verbatim talks about the sexual attack that Brett Kavanaugh and Mark Judge inflicted upon her and other girls. And Mark Judge is in hiding. Like, they found Mark Judge in some small, like, oceanside community in Delaware, hiding from the press. And he actually, apparently, when he was found by a reporter, the reporter says the first thing Mark Judge says was, "How did you find me?" Because he fled New York, apparently, in an effort to avoid being asked questions about Kavanaugh. Now, I ask you, is that something that's, does that sound like a person who has nothing to hide or nothing to share incriminating about Kavanaugh, that he went into hiding and a reporter had to be a sleuth and find him? You know? So I find that to be a little bit peculiar, that a person who's innocent had to go into hiding to avoid testifying against someone. William, thank you for checking in, my friend. William Campbell, North Carolina, Fayetteville there. Have a good night, and thank you for coming on and saying hello as always. Um, yeah, so I just think that he's done some really bad things, and all of us are different people when we're younger. I personally have never attempted to harm anyone in such a way, but I'm not the same guy. I'm smarter. I did destructive things when I was young that I would never do now because I'm an older person. Like, we have that past, but you own it, right? You have to own your shit. That's what I do. And the problem with Kavanaugh is that he's pretending like in this sea of madness that has such a paper trail from stories written about it from Mark Judge and everything in between, he's pretending that he was a choir boy, an altar boy who did nothing as it went on around him. And that's just not true. And it's clearly biting him in the, the bootay at this point. So anyway, we will see what happens with that. I believe the women. I think he's lying. I don't want to be my Supreme Court justice. I think he needs to go. And I think my prediction is he is going to go. What do you guys think? Do you think that he's going to make it through the Supreme Court? Give me your shout outs right now. If you think that he is going to be put through, or if you think that they will stop the nomination, or do you think he'll withdraw himself? That's what I think is going to happen. They're going to call him in the room and be like, yo, bro, we're going to need you to like scratch your name out. Like, and that's what I'm thinking. You know what I'm saying? So I've been like, I'm broadcasting live on Instagram as well, in case you guys didn't know. And I'm going to say some shout outs there too. I am going to say, hey to, okay, that's an Squirt Buck. I love the name. Nigel, my boy Nigel, what's going on? How are you? And Edward X-Man, what's up? And Ashley, one of the great PR people in the game, I'll say. And thanks for chiming in as well, Miss Ashley. Thank you so much. And Joey, you're so wonderful. You're watching me on both Instagram and on Facebook. I appreciate that. Let's see. Gosh, Christy 0801, and hey, Miss Summer, how you doing, girl? Sean Spawn DJ, thank you. Funky Town Paul. And gosh, so many people watching on Instagram. I'm honored. Thank you. Core Issues, guys, is really building, and thank you for tuning in. So listen, I am going to go on to my next and last topic of the night, which is an interesting story about Nike. And one more comment though. Jason Morrison, common sense tells me he won't get it, but you never know. Regarding so let's stay on the Kavanaugh thing for a moment, because there's a couple comments coming in. And Karen Salter says, I wish I had faith that he won't get through, but very sadly I don't see it going that way. See, Karen, it's funny. To me, I do see it going that way for some reason. It feels to me that there has been support in place that is now beginning to waver, whether it be Susan Collins or now even Mitch McConnell, who last week was like, he's gonna get through. And now he's like, well, we'll see. We'll vote one way or the other, up and down. And then even Donald Trump today, who was so adamantly, like, on one hand saying that the girls are all lying and Kavanaugh's a good man, he's going to be a Supreme Court justice. Today, Donald Trump was like, well, if the girls convince me enough, I'll cut them loose. Then there's reports that Ivanka Trump actually has tried to convince her father to cut Kavanaugh loose as a liability. And I think that's the smartest thing. And that is literally a smart suggestion. But, Trump is stubborn. But, so Karen, I think, I think that it's possible that he's going to withdraw. That's it's like, when you have a corporate job and like they get rid of the executives, and instead of saying that they're firing the executive resigns, but it's been like negotiated for like a week, with a big parachute package, and, they're going to get all this like money, but the technical question is like, they're going to resign. That's what I think. And, and I am a protector of women, right? So I don't like this. And women who know me and know my women in my life know I'm a fierce protector. And because I get it, I was raised in a house full of 3 generations of women. I was lucky enough to live in a house with my great grandmother, who died at 97, and my grandmother and my mother, all at the same time. Now, granted, and there were two aunts in there too. Now, granted, I had two uncles and a grandfather, so we were outnumbered all the time. But I know the struggle of women, and especially minority women. But that's not this story. But yeah, I was a model agent in New York City, which is a cesspool very often for sexual impropriety against models. And I was like literally a father to these girls because their parents trusted me with them. So I take this very seriously. I mean, I used to get on the phone and like threaten like makeup artists and photographers who would do some bad stuff to young girls and guys, and I was like that guy. And I was like, and those of us who did that in fashion, we were like anomalies, like, because everyone went along with it. And now all those horrible stories are coming forward about some of the world's top photographers and makeup artists about the stuff they did. But there are those of us who protect, and I'm one of those. I don't play that. And I hope that he is not put forth because I believe the women. I stand with the women. Plain and simple. That's it. So now Nike. So, okay, here's the thing. A couple weeks ago, Nike put out the commercial with Kaepernick, and we're like, Nike, yeah. Jennifer Lewis, went to the damn Emmys in a running suit with a Nike suit. People all around her in gowns, and she show up in a tracksuit, like, I'm with Nike because I stand with Wakanda, right? Afro. In fact, her hair looked a lot like mine, Jennifer Lewis, on the red carpet on the Emmys, if you think about it, didn't it? Yeah. Okay, I'm getting distracted about the coif. The point is, so the Root, who I love the Root. And it's a great, and I'm not talking about like a vegetable, y'all. Like the Root is a blog, a news site, which I absolutely love, run by minority, Black folk. And they tend to cover stories that relate to the African-American community. And they will cover stuff that the rest of the media is not. Sometimes they're usually always spot on. Sometimes they are, and sometimes they are not, but mostly they are. But a really good friend in DC who I appreciate bringing this to my attention, Mr. Mark Fraser. And thank you, Mark. I'm calling you out. Calling you out in a good way for sharing this story with me. The Root has now called Nike out because they've uncovered that Nike has, well, I'm going to say in quotes, Nike has given donations overwhelmingly to the Republicans, the Republican campaigns for political offices across the country, including the presidency. And so they're kind of claiming that Nike's talking out of both sides of their mouths and that they only did the whole Kaepernick thing, just to capitalize on it and to make money. But their real heart is that they've actually donated millions of dollars to the Republicans while making billions off of the Kaepernick endorsement. And I find this story by the Root, who I love, again, I will say, to be a little murky and convoluted. And when you really dissect it, it is not Nike as a corporate brand per se. But what they did was they looked at the people who made donations within Nike, and like 50% of the people at Nike who donated to political causes donated to Republicans. And 50% of those donations were basically the founder of the company. Oh, what's his name? Phil. I had his name so I can recall it, but he's the founder. Oh yeah, Phil Knight. So Phil Knight basically, who no longer runs Nike, but he still maintains, of course, part ownership as the founder of the company. But he's given more like almost like $1.2 million to Nike, and on behalf of Nike, I'm sorry, he's been working at Nike. He gave like $1.2 billion to Republican causes. And so the Root is calling him out, saying that, that Nike is talking on both sides of their mouths. But Phil Knight, as an individual who works for the Nike brand, giving donations is not the same as Nike endorsing the Republican Party. And to be clear, what's unique about this story is that, yes, lots of donations from Nike went to Republicans consistently from 2008 or so, or 9, all the way up to, but excluding 2016. Excluding 2016, which means they went up to the point of the Donald Trump presidency, and they're like, you know what, we're not putting money there. I mean, that's something that's really to make note of, right? So it's not about the parties per se. I don't have a problem with, well, until recently, I wasn't anti-Republican. I'm anti-Donald Trump, and they were two different things. They are two different things. It's a two-party system that's always existed. Donald Trump is another animal. I'm against Donald Trump, everything he stands for. So the fact that Nike may have given contributions to conservative causes, sometimes that happens within corporations. You know, I worked for a major company, and, you know, we were all liberals and we were all artists, right? And we were people who are not in that whole conservative right wing at all. But there was a time when people at my company, the executives, had to go to Washington because our industry was being affected. So they had to go and do some lobby work, you know, meet with lobbyists, because our industry in the supplement world was being affected. And there were times when executives had to write checks to Orrin Hatch. I will say no names, but that had to happen because Orrin Hatch was a proponent of the industry that I worked for overall. And that's a big deal. So it wasn't like the executives were like gung-ho on Republican values just because they gave money to a Republican person. And so that's why this article is a little murky from the root. And I think that, you know, the Nike brand has proven where they stand creatively and the support they give to marginalized groups. And I don't think it makes no sense that they were going to try to make money off of Kaepernick, considering how, I guess, isolated he is and how much people really have been polarized against him. It makes no sense that that was a good business move, right? I mean, that to me was a risk, and they put money into it, but it was a risk. That wasn't like let's make money, so we're going to do a commercial with Kaepernick. Yeah, controversy, that was going to be a given, but not making money. Like, I don't see how that was a business move. So my point in that is that I'm going to still continue to support Nike, because to me, I think that they've proven themselves in many aspects. And if they've given money to Republican causes in the past, that doesn't mean that they're oppressive in their values, right? Because, you know, people are fiscally conservative. People do that. They support conservative causes fiscally, and they may be socially into more liberal causes. That happens all the time. But in this instance, I see that they have donated both to Democrat and Republican, just that it was an excessive amount more on the Republican side, which is why the Root then dug deeper and saw that they had been giving money to the Republicans since 2008 or 2010 up till the 2015 16 election. I don't see a cause to boycott Nike now. I mean, we just did that already, right? 2 weeks ago. And on that same note, let's just remind everyone that Nike campaign has now brought in $6 billion for Nike. $6 billion. So even if Nike thought, well, let's try and make a couple of dollars off of this, like $6 billion, I'm sure was not in the business plan of projections of what they were going to make. And the good thing about that is that it shows us that a majority of America or the world who supported Nike after Donald Trump claimed Nike was going to die because of supporting Colin Kaepernick, it shows that most people are on the right side of history and want to do the right thing and see the right things represented. And it did not include isolating Colin Kaepernick when this campaign came out. And so at the end of the day, $6 billion. And that's money that Colin Kaepernick will have for his causes. Don't forget, part of Colin Kaepernick's deal with Nike had to do a lot with his charitable causes that would go to the community. He also has an apparel deal and a shoe deal, and that is more money made because Colin Kaepernick gives back to urban communities, just like LeBron James. So, I love the Root. I'm not going to get involved in that on their side on this one. I think that they're reaching a little bit. So I'm going to let them have that fight, and I'm not really going to participate in it. I don't agree with the Root on that one. Typically, I love them, but not this time. And that concludes what I have to say tonight, guys, about everything. Now, just to wrap up, I did just revive my YouTube channel called The Core Factor TV, where all the videos I've done, including past interviews with Mario Lopez for the Vitamin Shop brand, when I did some stuff with them, and interview I did with the one and only Vivacious, who you all know from RuPaul's Drag Race, who I just love. Vivacious is super fun. Oh gosh, a lot of fun stuff on there. TV commercials I've done, all kinds of good things. Core Factor TV, it's YouTube channel. And so I would love for you guys to subscribe to it. I will have the link in this broadcast when I get finished tonight. And you can always find my past broadcast here on Facebook Live under the hashtag core issues. Very simple. And a few other things pop up. So I may customize this hashtag in the future, maybe core issues live. That might be a little differentiator. But in the meantime, hashtag core issues, find it on Facebook, keep the conversations going. Feel free to chime in. I always read and moderate all my my posts. And I look forward to hearing from you guys and keeping these conversations going. All right. So thanks again for tuning in. I am Corey Andrews, and this is Corey Andrews. I said my own name. I am Corey Andrew, and this is Core Issues. And I will see you guys again next Wednesday, 8:30 again, God willing. And I can only imagine what we'll be talking about next week, because this stuff is foolish and only getting more foolisher. Until next time, I see you guys later. All right, bye-bye.